Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth.
I want to really take a look at the fact, though, that as a result of all of this lying that we have just come through, you would think at this point the American people would be sick of it. But, in fact, this is one of those areas where I used to disagree with Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan used to say that he had an unwavering faith and confidence in the goodness of the American people to get it right. Sorry. On the other hand, my philosophy is a little bit more jaded. It's more like I never underestimate the ability of people to continue to be stupid. And so we are, without a doubt, the most propagandized people on the planet. And now all of a sudden, we're watching leftists who, over the past couple of years, we used to think of the left, the liberals, they were all about free speech, man. I get to say whatever I want. And if I want to whip my dong out and show it at people, I can, because I got free expression. And I should be able to say the F word on TV, because it's all about freedom of speech, man. You just don't like what I've got to say about the war in Iraq. And so you're trying to silence me. And the truth is, it isn't the right that was into censorship and making everybody participate in groupthink. It has turned out to be the left. If you said anything against St. Fauci or the prescribed notion of how we were to handle COVID-19, you were censored, deplatformed, removed from social media. You were branded, you were lampooned, you were called a science denier, etc., etc., etc. That's all gone away, and now the left that used to be against things like, war, the left that was constantly apologizing to Soviet Russia, worried that Ronald Reagan was going to start nuclear war, and they had back channels through Ted Kennedy to the Kremlin to make sure that the Kremlin would play nice with America despite Ronald Reagan being in the Oval Office, and we wanted to give up all of our nukes, and then Russia would too. They spent an entire generation, my growing up years, just loving on Soviet Russia. Bernie Sanders, vacation there, he honeymooned there. He came back and told us what a great place the Soviet Union is, and we just don't have anything like it here in America. I mean, even when you go into a tunnel to get on the subway, and they've got just fine art and chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. We have nothing like that in American subways. That was Bernie Sanders. Now all of a sudden, Russia's not only the great Satan, but you can't question anything that's happening with regard to Ukraine and Russia. And if you do, you're un-American. You are doing the work of Vlad Putin. And how dare you insinuate that there are some things that went on in Ukraine before the Russian invasion that were problematic, could have even contributed to the fact that Russia crossed that border. And certainly, we learned our lesson with Wuhan. We had nothing to do with any labs in Ukraine. So all of that. But you can't say anything about the fact that we have goaded this to happen. There is a political agenda why we want this thing to be prolonged, rather than the reality check of, hey, Ukraine, you really can't stand out against this overwhelming force. And every time someone from the Biden administration says that Ukraine is going to achieve victory, that is an absolute lie. They are egging these people on, and it was almost heart-wrenching to watch this poor president today, and Yazinski, Kalinsky, Wazinski, whatever-ski, Zelensky. I get it. His country's in shambles and he wants help. And he makes that passionate plea before Congress. And you know that CNN and the rest of the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream propaganda media is just going to run with this. We'll send them money. We'll send them weapons. We're not going to really help them, and we're allowing them just to be cannon fodder. We want this dragged out, and what should happen is if this president had any real character or conviction, he would get Zelensky and Putin to the table, and he would broker a peace deal now. But they don't want that. They want this conflict. They want their proxy war. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But as I said earlier, while we're looking for Fauci, we find out about biolabs in Ukraine. Well, of course, immediately, as this gets to be brought up, the propaganda spin machine goes into effect saying, this is Russian disinformation. Here we go. In fact, once that got rolling, even Joe Scarborough, the schmuck over there at the, Mr. Magoo with his pole dancing wife over on PMSNBC, talking about this is just nothing but disinformation. We're doing the wook of Putin, blah, 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 blah. But wait a minute. We've had members of our own CIA and intelligence communities giving sworn testimony before Congress. There's some biolabs over there, and this could be a problem. So Tulsi Gabbard, former congressperson, former presidential contender for the Democratic Party, she talked about the need for us to secure those labs so that we don't have a problem. And she did imply that the labs could have been used in the development of bioweapons. And immediately, the indignation of our State Department and of our media, how dare you say that? Well, they were making anthrax. What is anthrax used for? The FBI told us they now believe that the anthrax threats that we were receiving back at the time of 9/11 probably came from there. Bum, ba-dum, bum. So we were giving money, whether knowingly or not knowingly. Were we directly or indirectly involved in this? And Tulsi Gabbard wants some answers, but first and foremost, she wants these labs secured. This is a war zone. And then, of course, RINO Mitt Romney springs into action. Tulsi Gabbard, her treasonous lies may well cost lives. Tucker Carlson then had Tulsi come on his show, explain what it was that she was talking about. Tucker, doing some investigative reporting, has a really good team over there. They're the only thing on Fox News worth watching. Now, Tucker's being called a tool of Putin, and Tulsi's being called a traitor, even though she's active duty military right now as a lieutenant colonel, and Romney got like a dozen deferments so that he never had to see action in Vietnam. Amazing, these guys like Romney and Lindsey Graham, who literally ejaculate over the thought of our American military getting slaughtered somewhere. As long as you go, they ain't going. So Tulsi Gabbard finally decided enough is enough. She took the gloves off, and she has set the record straight.
Senator Romney, you've called me a treasonous liar simply for stating the fact that there are over 25 U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine, which, if breached, would release and spread deadly pathogens across the United States and the world, and therefore they must be secured so that we can prevent any new pandemics from occurring. Now, bizarrely, you claim that securing these labs, or even calling for securing these labs, is treasonous and will lead to a loss of life, when the exact opposite is obviously true. The spread of pathogens is what will cause the loss of life, not the prevention of such a spread. So, Senator Romney, please provide evidence that what I've said is not true and treasonous. And if you cannot, you should do the honorable thing. Apologize. Resign from the U.S. Senate. Evidence of the existence of these biolabs in Ukraine, their vulnerability, and therefore the need to take immediate action to secure them is beyond dispute. Just the other day, the State Department's Victoria Nuland acknowledged that these labs that contain dangerous pathogens exist in Ukraine in her testimony to the U.S. Senate.
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
In a Pentagon fact sheet dated March 11th, there are numerous statements that both directly and indirectly confirm the existence of these biolabs. The United States, through BTRP, has invested approximately $200 million in Ukraine since 2005, supporting 46 Ukrainian laboratories, health facilities, and diagnostic sites. On CBS Face the Nation on March 13th, CBS national security correspondent David Martin said that he'd spoken to a Pentagon official just that morning who told him they're concerned about the existence of these biolabs in Ukraine.
The concern is that the Russians will seize one of these biomedical research facilities that Ukraine has, where they do research on deadly pathogens like botulism and anthrax, seize one of those facilities, weaponize the pathogen, and then blame it on Ukraine and the U.S. because the U.S. has been providing support for some of the research being done in those facilities.
Now, in April of 2020, in refuting Russia's accusations that the U.S. was using biolabs in Ukraine to develop biological weapons, the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine acknowledged that there are U.S.-funded labs in Ukraine working with pathogens for vaccines and other peaceful purposes. In a CNN fact check on March 10th, 2022, there are U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine. That much is true. Furthermore, according to the DoD, there are 2 biolabs in Ukraine that have been under Russian control for quite some time. Russia illegally took possession of 2 Ukrainian-owned laboratories that BTRP upgraded in 2014 and continues to deny Ukrainian access to these facilities. So, Senator Romney, you have a choice. Out of pride, continue to deny the truth, or admit that you're wrong, apologize, and resign. Aloha, and remember that without the truth, we can be neither safe nor free.
So let me get this straight. Our own intelligence communities confirm, yes, there are biolabs there. Yes, there are things there that could trigger another pandemic, and there are some materials there that their only reason for existing is a weapon, like anthrax. And for simply saying we need to get this secured and then look into who was involved and why, and that makes her treasonous? Are you kidding me? This is what we're left with. And if any of us really want to dig into this and talk about it, it's the new thing that you will get censored for, deplatformed for. YouTube, Facebook, they'll allow you to say any type of vile, nasty, threatening thing you want against Putin. They've lifted all their community standards on that. Oh, okay. But you can't say anything about the Ukraine army, which is made up of, in fact, I can't even say what they're made up of. That's how warped and twisted all of this has become. You are so propagandized. All I can say on this one, God bless Tulsi Gabbard, who I don't share a lot with her politically, but she is 100% right on this, and she is taking the heat for it, and God bless her for standing up.